My name is Alec. I am the founder and chairman of Cross Culture International Foundation. I moved from the UK to Malta 13 years ago, and that move changed my life, and not only my life and that of my family, because a few months after we moved, we met two girls, young girls that were around about 16. And little did we know that they were actually victims of human trafficking. So we got to talk to them and ask their story. And just as we were getting to know them, they slipped out of Malta into the red light district. And sometimes, and most times, I get emotional about it because these girls were the same age with my son. And every time I thought of them, I felt guilty that I could have done something to avert that happening. We made a commitment as a family to be involved in working to stop human trafficking in Malta. Human trafficking, besides being a global problem, it's a problem that needs to be tackled locally, because we have cases of human trafficking locally, and we always say just one case of human trafficking is one too many. It is more difficult to rescue a victim than it is to stop that person from being a victim. And within the project, we are looking at developing tools that are very much user-friendly and tools that people can rely on to get information, to know information about human trafficking, to report any suspicious cases to the authorities. It's ambitious, but we're looking at Malta being human trafficking free. That's really what we're looking at. Every activity that we're doing, it was the five of us. My wife and the three boys right in Bujiba, raising awareness, printing, handing flyers, and that has been our life. And we could not achieve what we have achieved without the support of my family. And I look back and I thank them for that commitment. We have to stand up, we have to jointly stand up, and this project is an initiative that we are passionate about. We are passionate about it because it gives us an opportunity to impact our communities with that safe mentality of making sure that anybody who's born, they will grow up, they will mature, they will learn, they will achieve their dreams, and they will die naturally, but not prematurely because they've been exposed to trafficking.
What is the value of a life? Is it the economic contribution of a person, the cost, maybe, to keep them alive? Or is it what they themselves give back? Or maybe the little acts of kindness that they try to hide? What is the value of a life? I'm going to tell you a story today of how that question has been passed from hand to hand and how it's ended up standing in front of you here now. I'm a multimedia storyteller, and a few years ago I worked with a fellow filmmaker to tell the stories of asylum seekers resident here in Malta. Around the same time, UNHCR introduced me to Hedwig and Alec, who were organizing an anti-trafficking concert in Bujiba. Now, whether it was because I never thought that that was actually a real problem here, or because I was just moved at the time by their passion, since then I've told a few stories with them, and I'll be honest, I was a bit taken aback when they asked me to be here to tell you this one now. But I'm proud to be. Malta's an incredible place. I was born half Maltese, half Icelandic. Naf nitkellem sa xi ċertu punt bil-Malti kif ukoll bl-Islandiż. And in that sense, I've always been deeply connected to the colorfulness of our history. And Alec and his family fell in love with much the same atmosphere. Until one Sunday, as he mentioned, that perspective changed forever, when they found out that two girls came here for very, very different reasons. That now they belonged to some sponsors that, based on their debt, they had to live a life paying that back. There and then, Hedy and Alec realized that if a victim could be sitting right next to you at church, wouldn't you want to know? Or maybe, how couldn't you? It was the feelings of powerlessness that drove them to open CCIF, and over a course of 8 years, they spent that time talking to locals, expats, governments, migrants, and everywhere the issue seemed to have a different name. Whether it was forced marriage, economic exploitation, escort, sponsor, it seems we're all on the same page, but we weren't quite. Based on the International Trafficking in Persons Report, 20th edition, Malta has officially been placed as a Tier 2 country, which means ambiguous, i.e. not quite doing enough. Now, this isn't a matter of blame nor policing. CCIF has long since partnered with the Malta Police Force, and they're doing everything in their power. But they can't know if we don't know. So the solution must come from awareness. It must come from society. This is why we're proposing a 2-in-1 solution. A community mobile app that is released side by side with a film to raise awareness on how that problem happens here. The app will be multilingual and will offer support to victims and education to wider society so that we can all help being a part of identifying potential victims. It will also have a social media part, a hub if you like, where we will invite locals to create activities, shows, workshops, all happening within their own localities. It will, in the same sense, have a marketplace where jobs can be recruited for, people can be hired, and in much the same vein, we will also be engaging properties to list safely vetted places. So even those trapped and caught in a cycle that they can't break from, there will be companies to show their social responsibility and offer a way out. And in that sense, we're really happy to have the support already of a local giant, Quicklets. But how or why will the people reach the app of Malta? How is this realistic? Well, awareness comes from telling stories, or we believe letting others tell their story. And so that is why with this app, we feel that it is more than necessary, but fundamental, that we produce Malta's own, its very own film on the story of a real victim that has ended up here. Not just as a pass-through, but as a destination. And given your support, we're also fortunate to have been told that we will have the official support of Love in Malta as our media partner on this, who will ensure that it will be accessible and available to as many people as possible. And in this respect, we hope to reach at least a minimum of 100,000 people within the first year with this movie. And thanks to that, at least 4,000 downloads on the app, which we then hope will continue to grow organically as more and more people bring in their own ideas, initiatives, and community activities. It's painful to say, but it costs 20,000 to rehabilitate one victim, which, if you add those numbers up over months, years, that could be money that we could invest into the community itself to strengthen it, create transparency and communication. So in the short term, our impact is such that we want to educate, we want to address the issue head on. But in the long term, and maybe this is the ambitious part, we want to create the sorts of safe, happy communities in Malta that we all feel safe to be in, the communities of the future. Malta is a heaven. As we say in Maltese, Malta ġenna tal-art. And it is compared to so many parts of the world that are suffering. But globalization and tech have hit hard and fast. And Malta is changing fast. So we need to decide together what the future of our local communities will be, if we really will and want to look out for each other. A Sudanese man and local once told me that wherever you look in Malta, you can see great things accomplished by the Maltese people. Now, it might not be very big, but the heart of the community always has been. And the Maltese story throughout history has always been one of unity and endurance and survival together. In fact, I find it nearly funny, but we've always spoken many languages throughout our history and still retained our identity. So I've always felt that should tell us more than any other reason that Malta has always been a home and a refuge for the displaced everywhere. Grazie.